Well, they pulled it off in the end, Alison, but it certainly wasn't pretty. The Dáil had called a vote for midday, and it appeared for a while that Enda Kenny's gamble to put an ultimatum to the heads of independence was going to backfire, because the 2 hours that followed, everyone was sitting in the Dáil looking over their shoulders, wondering if he'd have the numbers or they'd be going back for a general election. The appointment of John McNulty to the board of IMA. Back in September 2014, you took responsibility, but you said it was a minister's appointment and you hadn't knowledge of it. But last night you said you made that appointment. So which was it?
It was a line appointment by the minister.
But you're asking people to trust you. Do you see why people might have a problem with that?
Being perfectly honest and upfront, I accepted responsibility in the Dáil.
Your slogan is keep the recovery going. You've mentioned it at every possible opportunity. I suppose a lot of people would want to ask you, what recovery? Well, it was clear that Brian Cowan was feeling the pressure a little bit more today than last week. Much like a metaphor for his own career, the bit of the banking inquiry that related to his time as finance minister was marked by a robust defence and batting off any criticism that came his way. But when it came to discussing his time as Taoiseach, he wasn't so much up for the fight, and he wasn't so in control of the narrative. Once more into the breach after last week's fighting defence of his time as finance minister, today Brian Cowan was more subdued as he took questions about his tenure as Taoiseach, and in particular 2 nights that would shape the country's destiny for generations. Well, it's funny because Brian Cowan has been before the banking inquiry for 9 hours today and 9 hours last week. This is the big opportunity to get him. After all, this is the man who was finance minister from 2004, was Taoiseach from 2011, and oversaw a period that ultimately led to the bankruptcy of the state. Well, with 331 seats out of 650, this is a far more decisive victory than the Conservatives could have hoped for, and it gives them an overall House majority. The Labour Party were with 100 seats behind them, while the Scottish National Party did far better than expected, taking 56 seats. Claire Brock has been taking a look back at the day that swept David Cameron back into Downing Street. He's already under pressure from within his party to push for a renegotiation of its relationship with Europe ahead of a referendum by 2017. And concerns that this will lead to the closing up of the borders between North and South. What would you say to those sort of concerns?
Well, I'd say that, we're a long way off even having this referendum. There shouldn't be any assumptions about what the result's going to be.
Yes, that's right. One last day with the Taoiseach Enda Kenny of this election campaign. Has to be said, there is a sense of nervousness now amongst Fine Gael at this point. Such engagements by Enda Kenny have been rare on this campaign, and it's easy to see why. While some had a warm welcome, others were confronting him about problems in the health service, waiting times and disability and housing. If there is a scenario where Enda Kenny can't get the appropriate number of votes to become Taoiseach in the Dáil, you'll then be faced with the choice to either vote for Enda Kenny as Taoiseach, or another general election will be called. So what path would you go down?
I don't accept that likelihood, and I don't accept the premise on which the question is based.
Well, it's said that politicians campaign in poetry and govern in prose, so where better for the government to kickstart its pre-election message than in the poetic surroundings of Yeats' country? It was an opportunity for some stock taking ahead of a political term that's sure to lead into a general election, and where better than a country mansion rich in historic symbolism. It's been a long, difficult negotiation process, and I assume a kind of learning curve for yourself, seeing as you were so central to it. Is this some experience you hope to bring to Fine Gael leadership in the future?
Actually, that's a loaded question.
Take the name of the individual that you know to Garda Síochána. Thank you very much.
The moment when Gerry Adams passed confronted his present. You said that you set out to get closure for the Stack family. Do you think you have got closure for the Stack family?
Well, at the time when we finished that little process, and I want to stress again that this was an agreed process. I didn't have to get involved.
You are credited with making Fianna Fáil the permanent party of government one time. Now it seems to be the permanent party of the opposition. Do you see Fianna Fáil having a comeback?
Yeah, eventually. I don't know when, but it'll take the time, but they will.
The returning officer in Dublin Castle will make an announcement in the next half hour or so. And when that happens, I think it will be a very historical occasion, not just for this country, but internationally. Of course, we're the first country to put this question to a national vote. And really, they've run a very, very successful campaign here. They've really made the issue about the personal, and they've also mobilised the youth vote and the working class vote in a way that we haven't seen before.